She was sitting on a frozen train platform, rejected by the man who was supposed to marry her, with nothing left but a photograph of her dead family. She had already stopped shivering. She was ready to let the cold take her. Then, a 7-year-old girl appeared out of nowhere and asked one simple question that changed everything. But here is the twist. The man who murdered her family? He was still out there, and he was coming for her. What happens next will leave you speechless. This story reminds us that rock bottom is not the end. Sometimes, when we lose everything, we are actually being guided toward the people who will become our real family. If you have ever felt broken, rejected, or like you have nothing left, this story is your proof that the worst day of your life might just be leading you to your best. If this story touched your heart, drop a comment and tell me which moment hit you the hardest. And if you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another one. Share this with someone who needs to hear that healing is possible. I will see you in the next story. The wind in Silver Creek was sharp, and it sliced right through Eliza Hartwell's worn-out coat. She sat perfectly still on that bench, long after the train, and the man who was supposed to be her husband were gone. Hope was gone, too. She stared down the empty, snow-covered tracks, remembering how Henry Barlow had sized her up like a heifer at auction. He'd leaned in close, his breath stinking of whiskey, and said, "You are not what I ordered. You look like death walking, and I will not have that kind of bad luck on my land." She had tried to explain about the fire that took her family, that her grief had made her thin but not weak. She promised she would be a hard worker. Henry Barlow did not care. He just turned his back. "The stage leaves in 2 hours," he said over his shoulder. "Be on it." That was 4 hours ago. The stagecoach was long gone. But Eliza did not get on it. Where would she go? Back to Pennsylvania, to see the ashes of her home and the graves of her family. There was nothing for her there but ghosts. So she stayed on the bench as the sun went down and the snow started to fall thick and fast. She had stopped shivering an hour ago, a bad sign she barely noticed. The hunger in her belly had faded. All she owned in the world was in the small bag at her feet. 2 dresses, a hairbrush, and a single photograph of her family. The photograph was from the summer before they died. Her father, her mother, and her little brother Thomas, all of them happy and whole, a stranger's lifetime ago. A single knocked-over lantern in the barn had burned her world to the ground. She was in town that day. When she returned, all that was left was smoke, and the 3 people she loved laid out under borrowed sheets. After weeks of empty grief, a kind neighbor suggested she become a mail-order bride. A fresh start. So Eliza wrote polite letters to Henry Barlow, hiding her broken heart. She boarded a train, hoping a new place could make her feel alive again. Instead, she found this frozen bench and the cold certainty that she had made a terrible mistake. "I'm sorry," she thought, speaking to the family she had lost. "I am so sorry. I was not enough." The snow was a heavy white blanket on her shoulders. In the distance, the lights of Silver Creek glowed. She knew there must be a warm room somewhere in that small town, but she could not make her legs move. The shame of being sent away was a cold that went deeper than bone. She closed her eyes, ready for the quiet dark to take her. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was as small and clear as a bell. Eliza opened her eyes. A little girl, no older than 7, was standing right in front of her in the snow. She wore a wool coat that was a little too big and had the most serious gray eyes Eliza had ever seen. "Yes?" Eliza's voice was a dry croak. "Are you waiting for someone?" the little girl asked. "No," Eliza said, and the word felt like a stone in her throat. "No, I am not waiting for anyone." The child tilted her head. "Then why are you sitting in the snow?" The question was so simple, so honest, that Eliza nearly smiled. "I suppose I am just resting." "You look cold," the girl said. "My papa says people can freeze to death if they stay outside too long." Eliza looked past the child, searching for a parent, but the platform was empty. "Where is your papa, sweetheart?" "He is at the ranch. I came to town with a neighbor to get supplies, but he talks forever, so I went exploring." She said this as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Then she looked right into Eliza's eyes. "Are you sad?" The simple question broke through Eliza's frozen calm. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I think I am," she found herself explaining. "I lost some people I loved very much." The girl nodded with a wisdom beyond her years. "I lost my mama. She died when I was 4. I do not remember her face, but I remember her songs." Hearing this, Eliza finally felt tears sting her eyes. They were the first tears she had cried in months. "I am so sorry about your mama." "Thank you," the girl said. "Papa says it is okay to be sad. He says it means we love them." She kicked at the snow with her little boot. "He does not smile much anymore, though. Sometimes I hear him crying at night when he thinks I'm asleep." She looked up at Eliza, her expression full of hope. "Do you like stories?" Have you ever felt so cast aside that the world just seemed to forget you? That was Eliza, freezing on a train platform, rejected and all alone. When a little girl asked her to read a story, Eliza nearly refused. Stories were for folks who still had a little hope left, and hers had run dry a long time ago. "I have just been busy," she lied. But the child, whose eyes would not take no for an answer, begged, "Please, I do not have anyone else to ask." That simple, lonely request hit Eliza harder than the biting wind. Maybe it was because the girl's earnest gaze reminded Eliza of her own brother. Before she could think it through, she heard herself agree. "All right. One story." The little girl's smile was bright enough to warm the whole platform before she dashed off to get the book. Eliza told herself to get up and leave, to just walk away while she had the chance. But she stayed right where she was. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, someone had looked at her and seen a person worth asking for something, not just a problem to be dealt with. The girl, whose name was Maggie, came sliding back through the snow, clutching a book wrapped in oilcloth. She snuggled up right beside Eliza, a trusting little thing starved for warmth. "My mama gave me this before she passed," Maggie explained, handing over a well-loved book about a princess who saves a dragon. On the cover, the princess stood guard, her sword drawn to protect her scaly friend. Eliza's hands trembled as she took it, whether from the cold or the kindness she could not tell. Even with the fading light and the chill deep in her bones, Eliza began to read. Her voice was shaky at first, but the tale of the brave Princess Adeline and the gentle dragon Ember soon pulled her in. She found herself doing the voices for the characters, and Maggie was completely captivated by the tale. They were lost in that make-believe world when a man's sharp voice cut through the evening air. "Maggie Reed, what in the world are you doing?" A tall man was striding toward them, his face a hard mix of worry and anger. The man was Maggie's father. His suspicious eyes went from his daughter to the stranger she was with. "I am sorry, sir," Eliza started. "She only asked me to read." But Maggie jumped right in. "Papa, she is nice. She is just cold and sad." Her father sent her back to their wagon, but not before Maggie shoved the book into Eliza's hands. "You keep it," she whispered fiercely. "Promise you will finish it." Overwhelmed by the gesture, Eliza could only nod and whisper back, "I promise." Alone with the stranger, Eliza braced herself for an accusation. Instead, the man just looked her over and said flatly, "You are the mail-order bride, the one Henry Barlow sent away." Eliza's face burned with shame. "He is a fool," the man stated as if it were a simple fact. He saw her shivering, with nowhere else to go, a truth she could not possibly hide. After a long, quiet moment, he looked at her not with pity, but with a practical eye. The question he asked next changed everything. "Can you cook? You know ranch work?" Jonah asked, his jaw tight. "I grew up on a farm. I can do it," Eliza replied. "Good. My place is about 5 miles out. I need someone to see to the house and my girl Maggie while I work the ranch. The last woman hired got spooked by the quiet. He offered room, board, and a small wage. It was honest work, nothing more. Eliza stared. "You're offering me a job? You do not even know me." He met her gaze. "I know you kept my daughter safe. I know you read to her when you were ready to fall over. And I know if I leave you here, you might not see the morning." His face softened for the first time. "My girl says you're sad, like I am. Folks who hurt that much deserve a little kindness. The name's Jonah Reed." He stuck out his hand. "And I am looking for help, not a wife. That is all." Eliza just looked at the hand he offered, a lifeline in the crushing dark. Every bit of common sense told her to run. Men were not just kind, there was always a catch. But she had already gambled her whole life on a stranger's letters and lost everything. Maybe this was just another bad bet, or maybe she was too cold and hungry to think. Either way, she took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice cracking. His grip was strong and warm. "Can you ride?" he asked. "I can hang on." "That will do." He picked up her bag. "Mr. Thompson's wagon is warm, and he has got coffee." She followed him, her legs unsteady. The snow was already covering the bench where she had been ready to give up. Clutching the book Maggie had given her, she thought about fathers who showed kindness to strangers. She was walking away from the end of one story and into the beginning of another. For now, just moving forward was enough. The wagon ride to the ranch was a cold, silent journey. Eliza sat beside a quiet man named Mr. Thompson, who smelled of tobacco. Maggie hummed to herself in the back, wrapped in a blanket, while Jonah rode alongside on a tired-looking horse, his limp noticeable even in the saddle. Mr. Thompson passed her a thermos of hot, bitter coffee without a word. The warmth that spread through her chest was almost painful after being numb for so long. Near the end of the ride, he spoke for the first time. "You all right, miss?" "Yes," she managed, her teeth chattering. "Thank you." He just grunted in reply. The Reed Ranch appeared from the dark, a solid two-story house with a barn and stables. The place was well built, but it had an air of neglect, as if it were holding its breath. "Home!" Maggie called out from the back. Jonah swung down from his horse and helped Eliza from the wagon. His hands were firm but brief. "Thompson, I will settle up with you next week," Jonah said. "No hurry, Jonah," the man replied, tipping his hat to Eliza. "Ma'am." She just nodded as the wagon rumbled away, leaving her in the quiet darkness with Jonah and his daughter. This was her new home, for a little while at least. "Come on," Jonah said, taking her bag. "Let us get you inside before you turn to ice." The house was dark and cold, but Jonah moved with ease, lighting lamps that pushed back the night. Maggie ran ahead, leaving a trail of winter clothes behind her. The main room was large, with a huge stone fireplace, cold as the grave. The furniture was worn and practical, but the space felt empty. There were no curtains, no rugs, nothing soft. It was a house, but it was not a home. "Papa, I am hungry," Maggie declared. Jonah was already at the fireplace, building a fire. "Eliza, the kitchen is through there. There is bread, butter, and some ham if you are up to it. It will do for tonight." He was not just offering food. He was giving her a purpose, a way to earn her keep from the very first minute. She was grateful for the task. "Of course," she said, heading to the kitchen on tired legs. The kitchen was sturdy but showed its age. A pantry was neatly stocked, but it was clear it had been a long time since anyone had truly cared for the space. Her hands moved on their own, preparing the simple meal. It was strange, yet comforting, to be doing something so normal in a stranger's home. When she returned, a fire was roaring in the hearth. Maggie was half asleep on the sofa. "Thank you," Jonah said, taking a plate. "Maggie, to the table." With a dramatic sigh, the little girl obeyed, brightening up once the food was in front of her. Eliza sat and ate slowly, the simple meal in the warm room feeling like a miracle. Have you ever been pushed so far down that one simple act of kindness feels like a miracle? That's where Eliza was, a woman running from a past that wanted her dead. This story is about finding family when you have nothing left, so stick around. The hunger in her stomach was a living thing. When Jonah offered her stew, she ate slow, trying not to look like a wild animal. He stood by the fire, watching her. "All right," he finally said. "We need to get a few things straight." Eliza put her bread down, ready for the boot. "First, this is a job. I ain't looking for a wife. I already tried that." He glanced at his daughter, Maggie. "It ended. You get room, board, and $5 a month." "That's more than fair," Eliza said softly. "Second, Maggie comes first. You put her in any danger—" "I would never," Eliza cut in, her voice fierce. He nodded. "Third, I don't ask about folks' pasts, but if trouble's following you, I need a heads up before it gets to my door. Deal?" She thought of the man who destroyed her family. The world thought she was dead, and she had to keep it that way. For now, she was safe. "Deal," she promised. "Good," Jonah said. "Your room is upstairs, second on the right. Maggie's is across from yours. Mine's down here." He didn't waste words. "Any questions?" Eliza had a million, but she just shook her head. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. It's Jonah. And you're Eliza. Maggie told me about 47 times on the way here." A tiny smile touched his lips. "Fair warning, my daughter thinks you're the answer to her prayers." Eliza looked at little Maggie, who was nearly asleep in her chair. "She's a sweet girl." "She's a handful," Jonah said, but his voice was full of love. He scooped her up easy. "Come on, little bird. Bedtime." "But the story," Maggie mumbled into his shoulder. "Miss Eliza can finish it tomorrow," Jonah said. "She ain't going anywhere." Eliza watched them go, wondering if that was true. Nothing in her life felt certain anymore. Jonah paused on the stairs. "There's a nightgown of my wife's in your dresser. It'll have to do till we get you some proper clothes." The casual mention of his dead wife hit her hard. "Thank you," she said. "That's real kind." He just shrugged and carried his daughter upstairs. Eliza sat alone in the quiet kitchen, listening to the house settle. She should clean up, earn her keep. Instead, she just sat there, bone-tired, letting the warmth from the fire soak in. She had been so close to giving up, to letting the cold just take her. But a little girl had asked for a story, and a broken man had offered a job. Here she was, warm and fed. It felt like more than she deserved. "You still awake down there?" Jonah called from upstairs. "Yes," Eliza answered, finally getting up to clear the table. "Leave it," he said. "You look dead on your feet. Get some rest." She was too tired to argue. Upstairs, her room was small and clean, with a narrow bed and a faded quilt. Just like he said, she found a soft cotton nightgown folded in the dresser, as if it was waiting. As she slipped under the covers, she could hear them talking through the thin walls. "Papa," Maggie's little voice said, "is Miss Eliza really gonna stay?" "For now, little bird, go to sleep." "I hope she stays forever. I like her." "I know you do," Jonah's voice was low and gentle. "But don't get too attached. People don't always stay." "Mama didn't stay," Maggie said, and the sadness in her words was a punch to the gut. "No," Jonah agreed softly. "Mama didn't stay. But that wasn't her choice. Remember that." "Do you think Miss Eliza is sad like us?" There was a long pause. "Yeah, sweetheart. Yeah, I think she is." "Then we can be sad together," Maggie whispered. "That's better than being sad alone." Eliza laid in the dark in a dead woman's gown, listening to a grief that sounded just like her own. It wasn't hope she felt, not yet. But it was a reason. A reason to see what tomorrow might bring instead of wishing it would never come. For the first time in months, she fell asleep without dreaming of fire. Morning came bright and early. For a second, panic seized her, but then she remembered where she was. Safe. Downstairs, she could hear the clatter of pans and Maggie's happy chatter. The smell of coffee and bacon drifted up, making her stomach rumble. She put on her better dress, worn as it was, and went downstairs. Jonah was at the stove, flipping flapjacks like he'd done it every day of his life. A new day had started. Eliza just watched them for a spell from the doorway. In the morning light, Jonah looked younger than she figured, though the lines around his eyes told a hard story. His hair was a bit long, and he moved with a limp that he seemed determined to ignore. Little Maggie, though, was pure lightning in a bottle, chattering about horses and snow. When Eliza finally spoke a quiet morning, the little girl's face lit up like a prairie sunrise. Jonah just nodded toward the stove without missing a beat. "Coffee's on. Breakfast is coming right up." He slid a plate of flapjacks toward her and said, "Maggie, let the woman breathe." Jonah looked her over while they ate. "You look less like a ghost today," he said plainly. "I feel better. Thank you for all this." He just shrugged. "I need the help. So what are you good for?" "Pretty much anything a house needs," Eliza answered. "Cooking, cleaning, mending. I'm not much good with cattle, but I can learn." "Don't need you for that," he said. "Got 2 hands, Abel and Sam, for the heavy work. I just need someone to keep this place from falling down and to look after Maggie. The last woman I hired lasted 3 weeks before running off." "I do not mind being alone," Eliza said quietly. "Sometimes it is better." Jonah gave a slow nod. "Fair enough. Keep us fed and safe, and we will get along just fine." "Can Miss Eliza teach me to sew better?" Maggie asked, her mouth full of flapjacks. "Mrs. Henderson says my stitches are just terrible." "Mrs. Henderson thinks everyone's stitches are terrible," Jonah said with a dry smile. "But sure, if Miss Eliza is willing." "I would be happy to," Eliza said, and was surprised to find she meant it. After breakfast, Jonah grabbed his coat. "I am heading to the north pasture. Abel and Sam will be here soon. Maggie, you listen to Miss Eliza, you hear?" He stopped at the door. "Take today to get your bearings. No need to rush." Then he was gone, leaving Eliza alone with his daughter and a whole new life to figure out. "We should clean up first," Eliza suggested gently, "and then I will read to you." Maggie thought about it. "That is a good compromise. Papa says those are important." While they washed dishes, Maggie talked about school, her friends, and her favorite things in the whole world. Eliza found herself relaxing. This was work she understood. Taking care of a home and a child felt right. "My room is a mess," Maggie announced as they went upstairs. "Papa says I'm like a tornado." Eliza soon saw that he was right. The room was a happy disaster of clothes, drawings, and treasures. She just smiled at the cheerful chaos, instead of a scolding. "Tell you what, I will read the next chapter if you put your clothes in those drawers. How does that sound?" "Perfect." Maggie scooped up piles of clothes and stuffed them into the dresser. Eliza sat by the window and opened the book. She began reading about Princess Adeline and Ember the dragon, a story that was surprisingly deep about finding courage. She gave each character a voice, pausing for effect as Maggie worked. The girl would stop everything during the intense parts, just listening. When Eliza finished on a cliffhanger, Maggie gasped. "What happens next?" "That is it for tonight," Eliza said with a smile. "Gives you a reason to clean up tomorrow." "That is mean," Maggie grinned. "Just like Papa, using stories to make me behave. Does it work?" "Sometimes," Maggie said, flopping on her bed. "Miss Eliza, do you have a family?" The question caught Eliza completely off guard. "I did," she said, her voice soft. "They passed on a few months back." "Oh, that is awful," Maggie said, her face full of sympathy. "Were you sad?" "Very. I am still sad." "Me too." "About Mama," Maggie confessed. "Sometimes I get busy and forget to be sad. Then I feel bad for forgetting." "I do not think that is wrong," Eliza said gently. "Grief is like that. It comes and goes. Your mama would not want you to be sad all the time." "Papa says that too," Maggie looked up. "Can people be happy again after? Or are they just pretending?" The question was so big coming from someone so small. "I think," Eliza said slowly, "that happiness is just different afterward. It is not the same. but it can still be real. Maggie nodded. Papa laughs for real sometimes now. Not a lot, but some. Then it is probably real. They sat in a comfortable quiet, two souls who understood loss. Then Maggie brightened. Want to see the barn? We have 4 horses and 17 chickens and a cat named Bucket who does not like anybody but me and Papa. Eliza had to laugh. A cat named Bucket? She was a kitten in a bucket. Papa said the name was easy. Your papa has a point. Let us see this barn. The tour took all morning. The barn was sturdy, the horses healthy, and the chickens were a noisy mess. Bucket, the cat, hissed from a hayloft just as advertised. Maggie showed Eliza the tack room and the feed stores with pride. Around mid-morning, 2 weathered ranch hands named Abel and Sam tipped their hats, said a polite hello, and went off to work with Jonah. By noon, Eliza understood the place. It was not a huge ranch, maybe 50 head of cattle and a few horses, but it was Jonah's, and he clearly cared for it. She made lunch from the pantry, soup and fresh bread she had started that morning. When Jonah came in with the other men, he stopped dead in the doorway, just looking at the table. The smell of fresh bread filled the whole kitchen. Is something wrong? Eliza asked, afraid she had crossed a line. No, Jonah said quietly. It just has not smelled like this in here for a long time. He did not have to say more. She understood. The men talked ranch business over the meal, while Maggie told Eliza about each and every chicken. Afterward, Jonah lingered. Thank you, he said. For the food and for... He gestured toward Maggie, who was already heading back outside. Keeping her entertained. She is the happiest I have seen her in weeks. She is good company, Eliza replied. She can be a terror too, he said. But he was smiling. That smile changed his whole face, making him look younger. I will be back by dark. There is meat in the coal box for supper. Eliza spent the afternoon settling in, doing simple chores that gave her a sense of purpose she had missed. That night, after a supper of roasted chicken, they sat by the fire. Maggie brought out her book, and this time Jonah listened along, his eyes closed as Eliza read. After Jonah carried a sleeping Maggie upstairs, he found Eliza tending the fire. He spoke plainly. You told her about grief. Thank you. I am not good with words. Eliza shook her head. You are good enough. She knows you love her, and that is what matters. Jonah was quiet for a long moment. My wife, Rebecca, died 2 years ago from a fever. It was fast, less than a week. Maggie hardly remembers her now. He swallowed hard, and that might be a mercy. I am so sorry, Eliza said softly. Me too, he replied, moving to the window. I meant what I said about not looking for a wife. But I am grateful you are here. Today almost felt normal in a good way. I am grateful too, Eliza admitted. Yesterday I thought my life was over. Today I made bread and read stories. It felt like I could survive. Jonah turned, his face gentle in the firelight. We are all just surviving, Eliza. Some days are just better than others. I think maybe we all can make it, if we just keep getting up in the morning. It was not poetry, but in that warm kitchen with a man who understood loss, she felt a shift. Not quite hope, but the idea that hope could one day be possible. Good night, Jonah. Good night, Eliza. See you in the morning. And as she went to her room, she knew she would. It was not the life she planned, but maybe it was the life she needed. 3 weeks passed with a gentle rhythm. Eliza found peace in the ranch routines. Jonah was a steady, quiet presence, and Maggie filled the house with laughter. They were 3 broken pieces that somehow fit together. Eliza almost let herself believe she was safe, that a man named Caleb Rohr would never find her. She should have known peace like that does not last. The morning, everything fell apart, started like any other. Jonah was out checking fences. Maggie begged to help in the barn, promising to be careful, the way a 7-year-old does. Can I climb up to the loft? She asked, already scrambling up the ladder. I want to see the new kittens. Be careful, Eliza called out, carrying straw to the stalls. And do not pick them up if their mama is watching. I will not. Maggie's voice floated down. Miss Eliza, there are 5 of them. They are so tiny." A moment of joy was followed by a scream of pure terror. Eliza dropped the straw and ran. She reached the ladder just as Maggie fell through the air in horrible slow motion. The little girl hit the ground with a sickening thud, her head striking the corner of a feed trough. She lay completely still, blood already pooling in her hair. "Maggie?" Eliza knelt beside her, her hands shaking as she searched for a pulse. The girl's chest rose and fell. She was breathing, but her eyes were closed and blood poured from a gash on her temple. "Help!" Eliza screamed toward the stable. "Abel! Sam! Help!" She pressed her hand to the wound, but the blood was hot and slick. Maggie's face was ghost white. "Don't you die," she whispered fiercely. "Don't you dare die, Maggie. Your father needs you." Abel appeared, his face draining of color. "Sweet mercy, what happened?" She fell. "Get Jonah now," Eliza commanded, "and send Sam for the doctor." As Abel ran, Eliza focused on the child. She needed bandages. She tore a long strip of fabric from her own shirt. She pressed the cloth to Maggie's wound, just as her mother had taught her. "Tell me a story," Maggie whispered, her small hand finding Eliza's. "The princess and the dragon." Eliza's throat was tight with fear, but she began. "Once there was a princess who loved a dragon, but the dragon had forgotten how to breathe fire." Maggie's eyes started to close again. "No, sweetheart. Stay awake. Keep your eyes on me. I am tired." "I know, but you have to stay awake until your papa gets here. He is coming." The barn door crashed open and Jonah was there, his face a mask of terror. He dropped to his knees beside them. "What happened?" His voice was deadly calm. "She fell from the loft," Eliza explained, her words rushing out. "I put pressure on it. Sam went for the doctor." "Papa!" Maggie's voice was a tiny whimper. "I am here, little bird." Jonah's hand gently rested on his daughter's arm. "Papa is here. You are going to be fine." "It hurts," Maggie cried. "I know," Jonah said, his voice cracking for just a second. "Miss Eliza is taking care of you. You're going to be fine because you are my strong girl." They waited in a frozen scene of fear and love. Eliza kept telling the story of the princess, keeping Maggie focused on anything but the pain. Jonah never took his eyes off his daughter's face. When Maggie's eyes drifted shut again, real panic entered Jonah's voice. "Maggie, stay awake. Look at Papa. So tired. I know, but you cannot sleep yet. Tell me about the kittens." "5," Maggie whispered. Eliza met Jonah's eyes and saw her own fear reflected back. The bleeding had not stopped, and the doctor was still miles away. "I am so sorry," Eliza began. "I should have watched her closer. I should have—" "Don't!" Jonah's voice was sharp. "Do not apologize for an accident. A child falls. That is what they do." He swallowed hard. "You kept her alive. You stopped the bleeding. That is all that matters." But Eliza saw the question in his eyes, the one he was too decent to ask. "Why were you not watching her? Why did you not keep her safe?" She had no answer for him, only a crushing guilt. The doctor arrived an hour later, all brisk and business. He cleaned and stitched the wound on Maggie's head, while Jonah held her still. Eliza just stood there, useless, her hands stained with dried blood. "She will need to rest for several days," the doctor instructed. "No running around. Watch for confusion or vomiting. If you see any of that, you come get me right away." "I will," Jonah promised. "Thank you, Doc." "Just doing my job," the doctor said, then looked at Eliza. "You did good work with that pressure. Probably saved her. Head wounds bleed something awful, but they often look worse than they are." Eliza could only nod. After he left, Jonah carried a drowsy Maggie toward the house. Eliza followed behind, feeling like an outsider. She felt like an outcast, someone who'd lost her place in their lives the second Maggie got hurt. They tucked Maggie into bed, and the poor thing was asleep in an instant. Jonah just sat by her side, his hand on her arm, as if making sure she was really there. Eliza stood in the doorway, feeling useless. Finally, she offered to make some broth. Jonah's "thank you" was polite but cold as a winter morning. In the kitchen, she scrubbed her hands until they were raw, but she couldn't wash away the guilt. The image of almost losing that little girl shattered her. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing, when Jonah's voice cut through her grief. He crossed the room and, to her shock, pulled her into a firm, comforting hug. It wasn't romantic, just a simple, human kindness. "She is alive. She is going to be fine. That is all that matters," he said. After her tears subsided, Jonah spoke of his late wife, Rebecca. He admitted he'd blamed himself for weeks, but learned a hard truth. "Sometimes bad things just happen," he said, his voice low. "All we can do is live with what comes after." He looked her straight in the eyes. "What you did today, Eliza, keeping her calm, stopping the bleeding. The doctor said you likely saved her life, so please stop carrying a weight that isn't yours." Just as she was about to absorb his kindness, Abel appeared in the doorway, his face pale with worry. "Jonah, there is a man out front asking for Eliza. Says his name is Caleb Rohr, and he is looking for his fiancée." The world fell silent. Eliza's breath caught in her throat. It couldn't be. Caleb thought she was dead. Jonah's voice was sharp, pulling her back. "Who is Caleb Rohr?" She could barely form the words, her mind filled with fire and smoke. All she could see was her family's final moments, and hear Caleb's laughter as he struck the match. "Who is he?" Jonah insisted, his hands gripping her shoulders. "The man who murdered my family," she whispered. Jonah's face became a mask of cold fury. In that moment, she saw the soldier he once was. "Stay inside," he commanded. "Lock this door. Do not come out until I say so." He gave Abel an order to watch Maggie, and then walked toward the front door with a grim purpose. Eliza's hands shook as she turned the lock. Through the window, she saw a man on horseback, his silhouette unmistakable. It was Caleb Rohr. He had found her. Jonah stepped onto the porch, his limp more pronounced. His voice cut through the night air, cold and hard. "This is private property. State your business or get to moving." Caleb's laugh was a sickeningly familiar sound. "That is not very neighborly. I am just searching for a woman. Thin, brown hair, likely calls herself Eliza Hartwell. Sound familiar?" "Can't say that it does," Jonah replied. "That is funny, because folks in town said you just hired a woman who fits that description." "What is your interest in her?" "She is my fiancée. Ran off after a family tragedy, poor thing, sick with grief. I have been looking everywhere for her." His lie was so smooth, so full of fake concern, that a stranger would have believed him completely. But Eliza knew the monster he was. "Even if I knew this woman," Jonah said, his voice flat, "what makes you think she would want to leave with you?" "Because she is not well," Caleb said, dismounting his horse. He moved toward Jonah like a predator. "Grief makes people imagine things. She needs me to care for her, so why don't you just send her on out here? And if I don't?" Caleb's friendly act vanished. "Then the sheriff might think you are holding a vulnerable woman against her will." He was threatening them. It was all her fault for bringing this danger to their door. Before she could think twice, Eliza unlocked the door and stepped outside. Both men turned, and a cruel smile spread across Caleb's face. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Eliza said, her voice shaking only a little. "You are not my fiancé. You are a murderer." Caleb's smile never faded, but his eyes turned to ice. "Still telling that sad story?" "The fire was an accident, darling. You are just confused." "It was no accident," she shot back. "I saw you lock them in that barn." "Or did you imagine it?" he sneered, taking a step closer before Jonah blocked his path. "Face it, Eliza. You have no proof, just the word of a hysterical woman." "She is not going anywhere with you," Jonah said quietly, his voice deadly serious. "You are not welcome here." Leave now. Is that a threat, friend? It is a promise, Jonah replied, his hand resting on the butt of a revolver at his hip. You have 10 seconds to get on that horse and ride. Back with the law. You can tell your lies to the sheriff then. But right now, you are leaving my land. 10, 9, 8. Roar must have seen the deadly promise in Jonah's eyes. He backed away toward his horse. He snarled, "This is not over, Eliza." Jonah spoke plainly. "If you come back, I will shoot you for trespassing." After a long, hateful stare, Roar rode off into the night. The silence was heavy. Eliza's legs buckled and she collapsed onto the porch steps, shaking. Jonah watched the darkness for another moment, then turned to her. He said, "Get inside. We need to talk." Inside, he locked every door and window. He sat across from her, his face a stone mask. "Tell me everything. No more secrets." So, she told him. She explained how her father testified against Roar's violent brother. She spoke of the threats, the barn fire, and seeing Caleb Roar ride away as her family perished. The law called it an accident because Roar had powerful friends and she had no proof. She told him how she fled, bought a new name, and prayed she was finally safe. When she finished, Jonah was quiet for a long time. "You did not think to tell me a killer might come looking for you? I thought he believed I was dead," she cried. "I never would have put you and Maggie in danger." "It is too late for that," he said, his voice just tired. "He knows you are here. He will be back, maybe with some legal trick, or something worse." "I will leave tonight, Jonah. I will lead him away. That is foolish. You would be dead in a day. We need a plan. Tomorrow I ride to town and tell the sheriff our side of this. He will not believe me." Jonah looked straight at her. "He will believe me. I was an officer during the war. After that, I served as a territorial marshal for 3 years. Sheriff Brennan knows me. He knows I am an honest man who does not abide criminals." A small bit of hope grew in her chest. "You would do that for me?" "You are my responsibility now," he said simply. "Besides, Maggie would never forgive me if I let anything happen to you." From the stairs, a small voice called, "Papa?" Maggie stood there in her nightgown, looking scared. I heard shouting. Jonah scooped her up gently. "It was nothing, little bird." "Miss Eliza, why are you crying?" Eliza wiped her tears. "I was just worried about you, sweetheart." As Jonah carried Maggie back to her room, Eliza heard the girl ask, "Papa, is Miss Eliza going to stay, or is she leaving like the other lady?" Jonah's voice was full of conviction. "She is staying. She is not going anywhere." Eliza sat alone in the quiet kitchen. The memory of Roar's threat hung in the air. Could she truly stay and build a life here? She had to try. For Maggie, for Jonah. She was tired of running. Outside, the wind howled. Eliza knew Caleb Roar was out there planning his next move. But for the first time since losing her family, she was not alone. She had a home worth fighting for. The real battle would begin at sunrise, and Eliza Hartwell was finally ready to stand and fight. He moved like a ghost through the house, his rifle never far from his hand. Just as the sky started to turn gray, Eliza heard Jonah downstairs. She found him in the kitchen checking his revolver like he had done it 1,000 times. She told him Maggie slept well, with no fever. Jonah nodded, his relief plain on his face. He said Abel and Sam would be there soon, and to let nobody else inside. Eliza asked how long he would be gone. He replied, "As long as it takes to make the sheriff see that Caleb Roar is a danger." He paused at the door, his eyes softening just a bit. He told her if Roar came back, she was to take Maggie and run. She was not to fight, just get away. Eliza looked him square in the eye and said she would not leave the girl. In the last 3 weeks, that little girl had become hers to protect. She would die before letting Roar harm her. Jonah looked at her, a long, hard look, and seemed to see the truth in her words. "I know you will," he said quietly. "That's what has me worried." He walked over and gave her hand a quick, firm squeeze. "I will be back by nightfall," he said. And then he was gone. The sound of his horse faded. leaving Eliza with the sleeping child and a heavy silence. The morning was tense. Maggie woke up hungry and a little fussy, which was a good sign. She wanted Eliza to finish the story they were reading about a princess and a dragon. As Eliza read, she kept an ear open for any strange sounds from outside. Suddenly, Maggie took her hand. "Miss Eliza, are you scared?" she asked, her little face serious. Eliza saw no reason to lie. "Yes, honey, I am." "Of the bad man?" Maggie asked. "Yes. He wants to hurt me because I saw him do a terrible thing, and he is afraid I will tell everyone the truth." Maggie looked puzzled. "But you are supposed to tell if someone does something bad. My papa always says so." Eliza smiled sadly. "Your papa is right, and Jonah is telling the sheriff right now. But sometimes people do not believe you, even when you tell the truth." Maggie frowned. "That is not fair." "I know," Eliza agreed. "It is not." "Is that why you are always sad?" Maggie asked. "Because they did not believe you?" The question was a punch to the gut. "I am sad because that man hurt my family. They are gone because of him." "Like my mama is gone," Maggie said softly, her grip tightening. "Papa says my mama would want me to be happy. Do you think your family wants you to be happy?" Tears filled Eliza's eyes. This little girl who had almost died yesterday was trying to fix her. "Yes," she whispered. "I think they would." "Then you should try," Maggie insisted. "Because I like you being here." Eliza hugged the child gently. "I will try," she promised. "I will try to be happy for you and for them." Maggie settled back into her pillows, satisfied. "Good. Now finish the story. I need to know if the dragon gets her fire back." So Eliza read the last chapter. They learned the dragon had not lost her fire at all. She had just hidden it, afraid she might hurt someone she loved. The princess did not teach the dragon how to breathe fire again. She just reminded her that fire was not only for burning things down, it was also for warmth, for light, and for protecting what you love. When the story ended, Maggie sighed. "I knew it. The fire was just hiding." "Yes," Eliza said, "just hiding." The afternoon crawled by. Abel brought them lunch and said everything was quiet outside. Sam was watching the road, but Eliza could not eat. Her mind kept picturing the worst. What if the sheriff believed Roar instead of Jonah? What if Jonah did not come back at all? "You are worrying," Maggie said from her bed. "Your face gets all wrinkled up." "I'm trying not to," Eliza said. "Papa will be fine," Maggie said confidently. "He is good at talking. And he is good at the other thing too, if talking does not work." "What other thing?" Eliza asked. "Fighting," Maggie said simply. "Sam told me Papa was the meanest soldier in the whole war. Said he could take down 3 men before they even knew what was happening." Eliza was not sure if that made her feel better or worse. Just then she saw smoke from the window. At first it looked normal, but then she saw it was thick and black, pouring from the barn. Her blood ran cold. The barn was on fire. She ran downstairs and almost crashed into Abel. "The barn!" she yelled. "I know," he said, his face covered in soot. "Sam is already on it, but it is going up fast." "It was not an accident," Eliza said, her voice shaking with certainty. "It is Roar. He is here." Abel's face grew hard. "Stay inside. Lock the doors. I have to help Sam." Eliza watched from the window as the flames climbed the walls of the barn. She could hear the horses screaming inside, a sound of pure terror. She knew she should stay with Maggie, hide, and wait for Jonah. That was the smart thing to do. That was what he had told her to do. But the sound of those horses and the sight of those flames brought it all back. This is how he did it before. He had burned her family's barn, with her parents and brother inside. All the fear she had lived with for months turned into pure, hot rage. She had run from Caleb Roar once. She had let him take everything from her. She would not do it again. Not in this place. Not to these people. Eliza ran back upstairs, her mind cold and clear. "Maggie," she said, shaking the child awake. "Wake up. We have to move you." "What is happening?" Maggie asked, her eyes fuzzy with sleep. "There is a fire," Eliza said, wrapping the girl in a quilt and lifting her into her arms. "I have to get you somewhere safe." She felt a new kind of strength, a fire that had been hiding for a very long time. "I will keep you safe, I promise." She carried Maggie to Jonah's bedroom, a place she had never seen before. It was a simple room with a heavy door. Eliza put Maggie on the bed and wedged a chair under the doorknob. "Listen to me. Stay in this room. Do not open the door for anyone but me or your papa. Do you understand? Where are you going?" Maggie's face was wet with tears. "To help with the fire. To stop Caleb Roar. Please do not go," Maggie sobbed. "Everyone leaves and never comes back." Eliza's heart ached, but she held the girl's face. "I am coming back. Your papa is coming back. We will be fine. But I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" Maggie nodded. "Good girl. If you hear anything scary, hide under the bed until you hear your papa's voice. Promise me." "I promise," she whispered. Eliza then took Jonah's rifle from the wall and made sure it was loaded. She knew how to shoot, and tonight she was willing. Outside, the barn was being eaten by a furious fire. The ranch hands, Abel and Sam, were losing the fight against the heat and smoke. Eliza searched the yard. Roar had to be close. He would want to watch his work. She saw him then, a shadow on horseback by the storage shed, enjoying the destruction. Eliza raised the rifle and fired a shot into the air. Roar's head snapped toward her. He dismounted and walked toward the house, smiling. "Eliza, I was worried about you. Such a tragic fire." "Stay back," Eliza commanded, her voice steady. "I am armed, and I will shoot." "I do not think so." Roar kept walking. "You are not a killer, Eliza. Not." She was done running. She aimed the rifle straight at his chest. "This ends now, Roar, one way or another." For the first time, he looked uncertain. He stopped about 20 yards off. "You shoot me, you will hang. Is that what you want? To die for some rancher and his kid?" "They are my family now," she said. "And I will not let you take them from me like you took my parents and my brother." Roar let out an ugly laugh. "Family? You have been here 3 weeks. You are the hired help, Eliza. The second you are any trouble, he will throw you out." That is not true. But a seed of doubt was planted. Was she just fooling herself? "Is it not?" Roar took a step closer. "You let his girl get hurt. You brought me to his door. How long before he sees you are more trouble than you are worth? Put the gun down, Eliza. Come with me and I will make sure the fire does not reach the house. But if you make this hard, you will burn them alive too." The rage returned, hotter than the barn fire. "You are a coward, Roar. You kill people from a distance because you are too scared to face them." Roar's friendly act finally dropped, revealing the monster she knew was there. He went for the gun on his hip, and Eliza saw the same coldness that was there when her family was murdered. She pulled the trigger. The rifle kick was hard, the sound deafening. The shot missed, but it was close enough to make Roar dive aside, cussing. He was faster. His return shot sent a burst of white-hot pain through her left arm. She staggered but did not fall, scrambling behind the water trough as another bullet hit the wood above her head. "You are only making this worse," Roar shouted. She risked a look and saw him coming closer. Then she saw Abel and Sam running from the barn to help her. Roar turned and fired twice. Both men went down. He was reloading as he walked toward her. She was bleeding, scared, and had one shot left. Her hands shook something awful. But then she thought of her parents. She thought of Maggie, hiding alone in the house. She thought of Jonah trusting her to keep his little girl safe. That thought steadied her hands. Eliza stood up from behind the trough, right out in the open, and aimed the rifle with all her might. Fear flickered across Roar's face. "For my family," she whispered, "and for mine." This time her aim was true. He jerked backward, grabbing his shoulder as his gun fell. As she moved toward him, a horse thundered into the yard. It was Jonah, riding hard with Sheriff Brennan and two deputies right behind him. His face was a mask of pure fury. Sam was on the ground, and Eliza was barely standing, bleeding. Jonah was off his horse before it stopped, his rifle aimed steady as a rock at Roar. "Don't you move. Don't you even breathe. Just give me a reason. Reed, hold on." Sheriff Brennan got down slower, his own hand near his gun. What in the world happened here? "That man torched my barn, shot my hands, and he tried to kill Eliza," Jonah said, his voice quiet and cold. "I told you he was trouble. I told you he would be back." "She shot me," Roar whined. "I came in peace for my fiancée, and she just attacked me." "Hush now," Jonah said. "Sheriff, check his saddlebags. You will find rags soaked in oil. Then check the telegraph office. He was asking about this ranch yesterday. He planned this whole thing." Sheriff Brennan looked between the three of them, his face weary. He finally sighed and waved at his deputies. "Take him in. We are charging him with arson and attempted murder. We will figure out the rest down at the jail." As the deputies dragged Roar up, he shot a look full of hate at Eliza. "This is not over, you hear me? This is not over." "Yes," Eliza said softly. "It is." Then her legs gave out, and the world went dark. The last thing she heard was Jonah's voice, thick with emotion. "I got you. I got you now. You are safe." She finally let herself believe it was true. When Eliza woke up, her room was dark, and her arm ached with a deep, pulsing pain. A small lamp was burning, and Jonah was sitting in a chair beside her bed. His head was bowed, and his hands were clasped tight. "Jonah." Her voice was just a whisper. His head snapped up, and relief washed over his face. "You are awake. Thank goodness." He helped her drink some water, his touch careful. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been shot." "You were." "It went clean through your arm, missed the bone. The doctor said you will heal up just fine, long as you rest. Maggie is okay. She was scared, but she is asleep in her room now." Jonah rubbed his tired face. "Eliza, what were you thinking today?" "I was thinking that I would not let him hurt anybody else that I care about," she answered. Jonah was quiet for a long moment. "I could have been 5 minutes later, and you would be dead. But you were not. You came back, just like you promised you would, barely." Roar was in town all morning, telling folks you were crazy and dangerous. "It took me 3 hours to convince Sheriff Brennan to ride out here. 3 hours. In that time, he did all this. Are Abel and Sam all right? They will live. Sam took one in the leg. Abel got hit in the..." Jonah looked bone-tired, telling her that Abel and Sam were just fine, already complaining at the doctor's office. He turned his gaze to her. "But you, Lord have mercy. You faced down a killer with one bullet and pure grit. You nearly died." Eliza just shook her head. "I had to protect Maggie." "I know," he said, his voice low. "That is the only reason I am not beside myself right now." He took her good hand. "The sheriff has Roar locked up. With the evidence from the fire and all our testimonies, he will hang for what he did. I also sent word back to Pennsylvania. They are reopening your family's case. You are free, Eliza. He cannot hurt you anymore." But hearing those words did not bring joy. It just felt empty. "It does not bring them back," she whispered. "No," he said softly, "but it means they got justice." "Finally. What do we do now?" she asked. Jonah chose his words carefully. "Well, the barn needs rebuilding from the ground up, and you need to heal." He paused. "Unless you want to leave. You have earned your freedom. If you want a fresh start somewhere new, I would understand." "Leave?" The idea felt like a punch to the gut. "Do you want me to go?" "No," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "No, I do not. Maggie sure does not. But what do you want after all this?" "Yes," she said without a second's thought. "I want to stay." This is the first place that has felt like home since I lost my family. It is where I belong. So, yes, Jonah Reed, I want to stay, if you will have me." A weight seemed to lift from Jonah's shoulders. "Then stay," he said, raising her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss. "Stay as long as you want. Forever, if you like. Forever." That word had always felt stolen from her. But now, with her hand in his and Maggie safe down the hall, it did not seem so impossible. "Forever sounds good," she whispered. Jonah gave her a rare, genuine smile. Eliza thought about how sometimes the family you choose is the one that matters most. As the sun came up, she knew they would rebuild the barn. The hurt would take longer to mend, but for the first time in ages, she felt real hope. And that was more than enough. 2 days later, she woke to find Maggie curled up at the foot of her bed. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" she whispered. Maggie's eyes blinked open. "Making sure you do not disappear. Everyone I love disappears. I am not letting you disappear too." Eliza's heart ached. She pulled the little girl into a hug. "I am not going anywhere. I promised." "People cannot always keep promises," Maggie said, her voice small. "You are right," Eliza said, holding her tighter, "but I am making you a new one. I promise to do everything in my power to stay. I will fight to come back to you if I ever have to leave, and I promise that for as long as I am here, you are loved. Can you accept that promise?" Maggie nodded against her shoulder. "Okay, I accept." Jonah's voice called from downstairs, threatening to eat Maggie's breakfast. The girl giggled and scrambled off the bed to help Eliza get ready. Downstairs, Jonah was at the stove, looking relieved to see them. "I was about to send out a search party." "How are Abel and Sam?" Eliza asked. "Complaining, which the doctor says is a good sign," Jonah replied, setting plates on the table. "They both asked after you." "I will visit them when I am stronger," she said. "To thank them." Jonah's face grew serious. "I also stopped by the sheriff's office." "Roar has been officially charged with everything," Jonah said. "Arson, attempted murder. The sheriff says the evidence is ironclad. He will hang, no question." "The bad man is going to die?" Maggie asked, her eyes wide. Jonah hesitated. "He is going to face justice, and yes, that likely means he will die." "Good," Maggie said fiercely. "He hurt everyone." Eliza spoke softly. "It is all right, Maggie. The bad man cannot hurt anyone ever again. That is what is important." After a moment, Maggie brightened. "Papa, since Miss Eliza is hurt, can she teach me things? Like reading and sewing?" Jonah looked at Eliza. "If she is up for it, I do not see why not." "Then it is settled," he said with a small smile. "You have a new teacher." Maggie was tickled pink, and Eliza felt a warmth spread through her chest as the girl listed all the things she wanted to learn. This was what she had been searching for out west. Not some grand adventure, but a place where she truly mattered. The days found a new, gentle rhythm. As Eliza's arm healed, she taught a very eager Maggie how to read, write, and bake. Meanwhile, Jonah worked on the new barn. His neighbors showed up without being asked, bringing lumber and a helping hand. That's how folks survived in this country, by leaning on each other. The evenings were peaceful, with Eliza reading aloud by the fire, but underneath it all, a question haunted her. What was her real place here? Was she just the hired help, here today and gone tomorrow? The worry ate at her during the long, quiet nights. Then one frosty morning, about 3 weeks after the fire, Jonah walked into the kitchen with a serious look on his face. He stamped the snow from his boots and said, "Eliza, can we talk?" Her heart just about stopped. This was it. He was going to tell her it was time to leave. She braced herself for the words. But Jonah, for the first time she could remember, looked unsure of himself. He told her how he'd closed himself off after his wife, Rebecca, had passed on. He thought raising Maggie and working the ranch was all he had left in him. "It wasn't happiness," he said, staring at his worn hands, "but it was enough. Then you showed up. You brought this house back to life, Eliza. You made it a home again." He looked up, his eyes dark with feeling. And when you nearly died protecting Maggie, I realized something. I realized I was falling in love with you, and it scared me half to death." He stood and crossed the room to her. "I'm in love with you, Eliza Hartwell. With your strength, your kindness, and the way you fight for what's right." Tears were streaming down Eliza's face now. "I'm not offering you a job anymore," he said softly. "I'm offering you a life, as my wife, as Maggie's mother for real." She stared at this strong, scarred, beautiful man. "I'm not whole, Jonah," she finally whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm still broken." He stepped closer. "So am I," he said gently. "I've got a bad leg and worse memories. Maybe two broken people can hold each other up better than two whole ones ever could." The truth finally spilled out of her. "I love you, Jonah, but I'm terrified of losing anyone else." He looked deep into her eyes. "Then don't lose us. Stay. Marry me. Let all our broken pieces make something new and whole together." "Yes," Eliza said, the word finally escaping after being trapped for so long. "Yes, I will marry you." The years of loneliness washed away from Jonah's face as he gave her a kiss that promised forever. Just then, a small voice came from the doorway. "Does this mean you are staying for good, Miss Eliza?" Maggie stood there, her eyes filled with more hope than a person could measure. Jonah pulled the little girl into their embrace. "It means Miss Eliza is going to be your new mama." Maggie hugged them both with all her might. "It is perfect. When is the wedding? Can I help you plan it? And will I get to call you Mama?" Maggie asked, her questions tumbling out. Jonah just grinned, telling her to slow down. The wedding happened 6 weeks later, on a clear spring morning. They held it right there in the new barn, a place built from ashes and made stronger than before. It seemed like the whole town of Silver Creek came to watch the ceremony. Maggie stood proudly beside Eliza, holding a bunch of wildflowers. Jonah wore his best suit, and Eliza wore a simple blue dress she had stitched with her own 2 hands, each thread a piece of hope for the future. The wedding was simple and heartfelt. After Jonah and Eliza promised to choose each other every day, he gave her a sweet kiss that made the ladies sigh. Then he turned to Maggie, his eyes shining. Eliza knelt down, taking the little girl's hands. She explained that they wanted to make it official, to adopt her and become a real family, hers and Papa's together. For a long moment, Maggie was just speechless. Then, with a joyful cry, she threw her arms around Eliza. Through happy tears, she wailed, "Yes, yes, I want to be your daughter." Eliza held her close and whispered, "You already were in our hearts. This just puts it on paper." The celebration that followed was a blur of good food and fiddle music. The whole community gathered in the barn to wish the new family well. As the sun set, painting the Nevada sky with color, Sheriff Brennan found Eliza watching Jonah and Maggie dance. He said quietly, "Got some news from Pennsylvania. They reopened your family's case because of what that Rourke fella confessed. Found out his brother paid him to set that fire. They've arrested him." After all this time, they were finally going to get justice. Tears welled in Eliza's eyes, but these were tears of pure relief. Her name was cleared. Her family would finally have peace. She whispered a thank you to the sheriff, who just tipped his hat and walked away. A moment later, Jonah swept her into his arms, seeing her tears. "Everything is not wrong," she said, smiling brightly. "For the first time in a long time, everything is finally right." Later that night, sitting on the porch, Eliza and Jonah talked under the stars. "I almost sent you away that first day," Jonah admitted. "I was scared to let anyone in again. But then I saw how Maggie looked at you, how she smiled for the first time in ages, and I just could not do it." Eliza leaned against him. "I'm glad you did not." Jonah smiled. "Maggie told me something wise this morning. She said you getting turned away by that other fella was supposed to happen. It was the only way you could have found us. Sometimes the worst day of your life is just leading you to the best." Eliza thought about all the pain and loss that had led her to this perfect moment. "Do you think my family would have liked you?" she asked softly. Jonah's voice was certain. "I think they would just be happy to see you happy. They would be proud of the life you have built. You know, love does not divide, Eliza. It multiplies. You can love us and still love them with your whole heart." "Tell me about our future," she whispered. Jonah held her tighter. "In 5 years, Maggie will be 12, smart as a whip and training her own horses. We might add a room onto this house for a brother or a sister if that is what you want." Eliza's heart swelled. "Oh, I want that," Jonah continued, his voice full of promise. "In 10 years, Maggie will be 17, and we will stand right here, proud of the woman she has become, and thankful for the strong, happy family we built together. All of it, starting right here, tonight." "And what about us?" Eliza asked him later as they sat on the porch. Jonah pulled her in close. "We will be right here, a little older and a whole lot more tired, but still choosing each other every single day." He told her that life would not always be easy, and that hard times would surely come. "I know," she whispered, "but this time, we will face it all together." As they went inside, they passed Maggie's room and heard the soft sound of her sleeping. Their new life would start in the morning, with all its work and all its worries. But for tonight, there was only peace. Lying there in the quiet darkness, Eliza felt a sense of peace she thought she had lost forever. She remembered the woman she used to be, rejected and alone, freezing on a cold train platform with nothing left. Everything had changed because a little girl asked her a simple question. "Can you read me a story?" In the end, Maggie and Jonah had given her a brand new story to live. "Thank you," she whispered into the night, "for loving me even when I came to you broken." "You were not broken," Jonah said, his voice soft and sure. "You were surviving. I just gave you a safe place to remember your own strength." And maybe Jonah was right. She realized that family does not fix you. Family are the folks who stand beside you and remind you that you have been strong enough all along. The past would always be a part of her, a shadow she carried, but it no longer had to be her whole story. A new day was dawning outside the window. She was not alone anymore, and she knew she never would be again. On a little shelf in Maggie's room, a storybook about a dragon was finished. But here in this house, the real story, their story, was just getting started.